What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, the man known as The Truth, undefeated, unified, WBC, IBF, welterweight, world champion, superstar boxer, Errol "The Truth" Spence Jr., who is widely considered by many to be top 3 best pound-for-pound fighters in the world. Errol Spence's 27 wins, no losses, no draw, 21 big wins by way of knockout, 5'9.5" with a 72-inch arm reach at 32 years of age. Errol Spence is going into a massive unification showdown with WBA, World Boxing Association, welterweight world champion, Cuban star boxer, Yordenis Ugas, who is 27 wins, 4 losses, no draws, 12 wins by way of knockout, 35 years of age, 5'9", with a 69-inch arm reach. With that said, the fight is scheduled to take place next Saturday, April 16th, Arlington, Texas, AT&T, Dallas Cowboys Stadium, better known as Jerry's World. With that said, Errol Spence is doing interviews, he's doing presses, and he's promoting the upcoming fight. Now, Errol Spence, he was asked about a possible future showdown with undefeated rising welterweight superstar title contender Jaron "Boots" Ennis, who is 28 wins, no losses, no draw, 26 big wins by way of knockout. He is 24 years of age, 5'10", with a 74-inch arm reach. He too himself is going into a massive big fight for himself. May 14th, he'll be the co-main event to the highly anticipated undisputed junior middleweight rematch between Jamel Charlo and Brian Castano, as Jaron "Boots" Ennis will be taking on Custio Clayton, undefeated Canadian star boxer. So with that said, it's an IBF eliminator, and he'll be the mandatory challenger for Errol Spence Jr., right? And so Errol Spence was asked about a future showdown with him and Jaron "Boots" Ennis, in which Errol Spence, he responded, and he stated that, Jaron "Boots" Ennis, is definitely on deck for next. But he stated that, he FaceTimed Jaron "Boots" Ennis, he talked to Jaron "Boots" Ennis, and, he's, essentially he'll see Jaron "Boots" Ennis at junior middleweight at 154, because Errol Spence, he got his sights set on 2 fights at 147. He got his sights set on, facing off against undefeated 3-division world champion, superstar boxer who's widely considered to be #1 best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, and Terrence "Bud" Crawford, who is a former junior welterweight undisputed champion and a WBO welterweight champion, and that's the biggest fight in the sport of boxing. Terrence Crawford is 38 wins, no losses, no draw, 29 big wins by way of knockout, 34 years of age, 5'8", with a 74-inch arm reach. So that makes for the biggest fight in the sport of boxing. And so with that said, Errol Spence, he's looking to face off against Terrence Crawford should he get past Yordenis Ugas. Now, in my mind, I can say should he. For Errol Spence, he's confident that he's going to get past Yordenis Ugas, but obviously Errol Spence is like, first things first, I got to actually get past Yordenis Ugas, hold 3 belts, and then I'm going up to junior middleweight, okay? So he says that, Jaron "Boots" Ennis is a lot like himself, okay? Jaron "Boots" Ennis is the boogeyman at the welterweight division, right? He's a lot like himself. He says he sees a lot of himself in Jaron Ennis. That's not surprising. Jaron Ennis has the ability to switch from southpaw to orthodox. He's big, he's strong, he's athletic. So he's big and strong like Errol Spence Jr. He fights in the southpaw manner very effectively, gets knockouts, and he's aggressive. But then there's many people that feel like he resembles a lot of that of his Errol Spence's biggest rival in Terrence Crawford, right? He's very rangy like Terrence Crawford, and he switches from southpaw to orthodox like Terrence Crawford, okay? So Terrence Crawford, fluidly switches from southpaw to orthodox. Now in the late stages of Terrence Crawford's career and the older stages of Terrence Crawford's career, he's not as effective in the in the orthodox stance as he used to be. Terrence Crawford used to be very slick, very elusive when he was in the orthodox stance, just as well as he was when he's in the southpaw stance. But today's time, Terrence Crawford is very visibly much more effective in the southpaw stance than he is in the orthodox stance, leading many people to believe and feel like Terrence Crawford is no longer, a switch fighter. That Terrence Crawford is now solely a southpaw, okay? Including Jaron Boots Ennis himself. Jaron Boots Ennis says, me and Terrence Crawford are nothing alike, okay? He clearly sees there's a difference between himself and Terrence Crawford, and he says that we're nothing alike outside of the ability to switch from. People use the comparison that he switches from southpaw to orthodox, but it's the range. Terrence Crawford has knocked out his last 9 opponents, dating back to when he was at junior welterweight at 140 when he was undisputed, and moving up to welterweight, he's knocked out and stopped all his opponents at welterweight as well. So the range, the aggression, and the ability to switch from southpaw to orthodox is where the comparison comes in to Terrence Crawford and Jaron Ennis. Now, Jaron Ennis, he states and lets it be known that, my ring IQ and my adjustments are way better than Terrence Crawford's, okay? I'm a smarter fighter than Terrence Crawford is. So Jaron Ennis makes it abundantly clear that there's completely a difference between the two. Now, when it comes to Errol Spence, he's a southpaw who's big, he's strong, and he's aggressive. That's where the comparison comes into him and Errol Spence as well. Jaron Boots Ennis and Errol Spence. Now, Errol Spence stated that Jaron Ennis is the boogeyman. Is going to be the boogeyman at the division, right? Not too many fighters are going to want to fight him. You have, when Errol Spence was coming up, right, in the welterweight division, he was the guy. He was the boogeyman. He was the phenom that everybody was avoiding. He wanted to fight Manny Pacquiao. He wanted to fight Shawn Porter, 2-time welterweight world champion. He wanted to fight 2-division world champion Puerto Rican superstar boxer Danny Garcia. He wanted to fight unified welterweight world champion Keith one-time Thurman. And these guys did not want to fight Errol Spence Jr. They would not give Errol Spence the opportunity. Errol Spence, even when he had to go over to the UK for his first title opportunity, when he took on former IBF welterweight world champion British superstar boxer Special K Kell Brook for his first title opportunity back in 2017, well, Kell Brook had to be forced into that fight, right? Errol Spence was Kell Brook's mandatory for over a year and a half, and Kell Brook wasn't trying to give Errol Spence the opportunity. Kell Brook got a pardon, and which allowed Kell Brook to go and jump up 2 weight classes and challenge then unified middleweight reigning world champion superstar boxer in Gennady Triple G Golovkin, okay? So he got the opportunity to fight Gennady Golovkin. He jumped from 147 to 160, and he got his orbital bone broken. He came back down, and then almost a year later, he had no choice but to give Errol Spence his opportunity at the world titles. And Errol Spence, he broke his other orbital bone and stopped Kell Brook in the 11th round of the fight and became the world champion, okay? So with that said, that Kell Brook had to be forced into that fight. Then, you look at Shawn Porter. Shawn Porter didn't give him the opportunity. Now, I understand Shawn Porter was looking to regain the titles himself that he lost to Kell Brook. So Errol Spence went and took the belt back that Kell Brook beat Shawn Porter for. He went and brought it back to the States, okay? And then you look at Danny Garcia. He wasn't trying to give Errol Spence an opportunity at the titles until, most recently when he lost his titles and he was looking to fight Errol Spence to attempt to regain the titles when Errol Spence was already a unified champion. And Keith Thurman, he never gave Errol Spence the opportunity, and that's a fight Errol Spence was pursuing for quite some time. And Errol Spence was aggressively pursuing Keith Thurman everywhere Keith Thurman and Errol Spence was. And even when Errol Spence was doing interviews, the fight he was looking for was him versus Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman kept giving Errol Spence the runaround, walking him around the block and saying that Errol Spence was the kid is going to get his opportunity, calling Errol Spence a kid, continuing to say this kid is going to get his opportunity, his time is coming. Keith Thurman danced around the fight with Errol Spence, and he admitted that he danced around and misjudged the fight with Errol Spence to the point where Keith Thurman eventually lost his titles. He lost the WBC title to inactivity, okay, after he beat Danny Garcia in a unification bout. Then he lost his WBA title to Manny Pacquiao. And now Keith Thurman wants to actively, aggressively pursue a fight with Errol Spence because he has nothing to lose. Now he's already lost. Keith Thurman's motto was, I got an O and I ain't afraid to let it go. Well, when it came to Errol Spence, it didn't seem like he wasn't afraid to let it go. He just wouldn't give him the opportunity. So with that said, Errol Spence, he said that, you know, all the fighters are going to give Jaron Boots in the runaround, just like he was getting the runaround. And he stated that it reminds him a lot of himself. You know, he's big, he's very athletic, he's very skilled, he's very talented, but he's going to, you know, get the runaround. So Errol Spence essentially is saying, I'll see him at 154. When I move up to junior middleweight, you know, eventually with his size and his frame, that being Jaron Boots Ennis, I'll see Jaron Boots Ennis at junior middleweight as well. Okay, so it looks like that's the route. You know, Errol Spence, he already stated that he has 2 fights left at 147. The 2 fights is his fight with Yordenis Ugas that's coming up April 16th, and he wants to fight and get a deal done to face off against Terrence Bud Crawford after this fight. So he says that Jaron Boots Ennis and himself, they'll see each other at junior middleweight. Now, we know that Errol Spence and Jaron Boots Ennis, they came face to face when they was on FaceTime with Gilly the Kid, who's an entertainer and a musician out of Philadelphia, who's very close to Jaron Boots Ennis. They FaceTime each other. And, Errol Spence, he told Boots told him, you ain't see nothing from me yet. And Errol Spence said, I see you coming, but, I see you. I'm moving up the middleweight. Most likely it's going to happen at junior middleweight. I'm moving up, but we're going to see. We're going to cross that bridge when we get there. So Errol Spence is not shying away from a future fight with Jaron Boots Ennis. He's just focused on his plan at hand. Jaron Boots Ennis is going to become the mandatory for the IBF title of Errol Spence Jr. But like Errol Spence said, he's more than likely going to vacate those titles. Should he beat Yordenis Ugas, then he beats Terrence Crawford, he's more than likely going to vacate the title and move up. So then that would leave the division wide open for Jaron Ennis to start collecting those belts, and we'll see what happens from there. So let's see how this unfolds and plays out. But, you got Danny Garcia, who responded to Jaron Ennis' possible fight, and he said absolutely no way. He said he got to earn his name. He got to earn his keep. He got to get it out the mud just like we did. He's not going to make a name off of me, is what Danny Garcia stated. Sean Porter said he would never get in the ring with Jaron Boots Ennis unless he was absolutely forced, and he don't see a reason why. Keith Thurman at one point in time pretended he didn't even know who Jaron Boots Ennis was. Then he switched his stance and his views and stated that Jaron Boots Ennis is a mixture between himself, Floyd Mayweather, and Pernell Whitaker. So that's very high praise. So he clearly knows who Jaron Ennis is. And in Terrence Crawford, he said that he's always knew who Jaron Boots Ennis was because people told him, you got to keep a close eye on this kid. He looks a lot like you. Terrence Crawford never gave any solid answer as to would he fight Jaron Boots Ennis when he was featured on Sean Porter's The Porter Way podcast. So he never really gave a solid answer as to whether he would fight Jaron Boots Ennis or not. So we got to see how this unfolds and how this plays out for Boots Ennis moving forward. But that's all I got for y'all. Make sure you hit the like button, drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all in one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to New Media. Shout out to Black Media Row. Make sure you like and share these videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.
It is your boy Jaden Kiss. Make sure you check out Blue Blood Sports TV. It's going down.